Hello to everyone at Charles Dickens School, and thank you so much for asking me to be one of the artists in focus that you're looking at. It's a great pleasure, and I can tell from the questions that you've sent me that you've really thought about what you wanted to ask me about my work, and I hope that you find my answers informative and interesting, and maybe they might give you some ideas for things that you want to try in your own work, and artists that you might want to look at and study in the same way that I've done in my life, looked at artists who've inspired me and informed my work. The first question that you've asked me is about the way that I describe myself. The question is, you describe yourself as a painter of city life. Can you tell us a little bit more about this? Absolutely, I would describe what I try and do as be a painter of city life, but in actual fact it's a really difficult thing to do, to try and experience a city and all the things that happen to the city and all the things that you see while you're out and about in the city. I think it's a really, really difficult thing to do, but to me it's the most important kind of art that I could make, and that's why I love that challenge. Trying to fit everything into the confines of a canvas, what you call a canvas that I'm painting on, it is a constant challenge, but it's important to me to do that because I feel so much inspiration from the city itself, from the people that I see mainly. That's the thing that inspires me, because in a city like London you have people from all over the world, people of all ages mixing together in the streets. Ordinarily, obviously not right now, but that's the way that we think about the city in general. So there are three elements to my work, really, as I think about it. They are places, spaces, and faces. And mainly, I'm interested in finding a place that says something to me in terms of an emotion, a way that I feel about it, or something that's happened to me in that space, in that place. That's kind of what I'm thinking about, something that I might have seen there, something that, it may be a story that I've read or a song that I know about that place. May even just be the way that the light falls in a particular place that's inspired me on a particular day. And I'll go to that place and I'll make drawings in my sketchbook, and I'll make a lot of drawings, and I'll keep going back at particular times until I find the right, what I call the right kind of energy in that place. And then I'll sketch the people while I'm there. So I'm looking at their faces, so that's the second part of what I do, looking at their faces. And then I might even have conversations with people. I might talk to people that I meet there, people who are interested in what I'm doing while I'm there. And then the third part of it, the space part, happens when I'm in the studio, and that's about trying to fit all of the things that have happened, all of my sketches, all of my memories, all of the research, the books that I've read, the stories that I've read. Might even be a story from Charles Dickens. He's one of my favourite authors, and I've got so many ideas about paintings from Charles Dickens, and thinking about London in terms of London's history. From Charles Dickens. That's an idea of how the work evolves during that process. And it's the last part, the spaces part, where I'm trying to kind of break the space of the canvas and put everything into the picture that I remember and all the feelings that I had. That's the hardest part for me. And that takes the longest time, sometimes 2 months, sometimes 3 months, to try and find a way to make the painting work that feels like the place that I saw when I was there. The second question that you've asked me is, can you tell us about some of your favourite characters that you met while sketching in the streets? I wouldn't really know where to begin exactly, because every person in the painting is someone that I've seen. In each painting that I've done, I've made over 100 paintings in this way. Each time I've looked a person in the eye that I've sketched, and I've tried to remember what they look like and tried to put them into the picture. So everything is based on a real event. Amy and I had talked about one of the characters in one of my paintings when I was in Old Street Roundabout, just near the eye hospital there, and a gentleman came along with a white stick. He was an elderly gentleman And he came and sat next to me and we were talking. I could see that he couldn't see very well. And we spent the best part of an hour just chatting about his life and all the things that had happened in his life since he'd come from Ireland as a young man to look for work. And one of the things that he did was he brought out some letters that his mother had written him a long, long time ago. She wasn't alive anymore. And he got very emotional, as you would do, about these letters. As I was talking to him, I realised that what was happening was what we were talking. We were in Old Street Roundabout, but we weren't looking at anything around us. We were just looking, using our imagination to picture all the things that he was talking about. We were kind of lost in this imaginary world. And it struck me that I was on the same level as this man who couldn't see, because neither of us could really see other than the things that were in our heads at that point. So it was a lovely conversation really to have for someone like me who's very interested in visual things, to sit there and talk with this man. I never saw him again, but I put him into my painting and he became an important part of that painting. But there are so many characters. Another character that comes to mind when I was sketching in Cape Town train station, and there was a security guard there who I got talking to, and his name was City, and he was with me for a few days while I was drawing. I would chat with him a lot, and I ended up sketching him and putting him into the painting. But every painting that I do, that I make, has stories behind it that might not be obvious to people looking at the painting, but hopefully together there is this kind of energy that comes through. Would you describe yourself as a storyteller? And that goes back to what I was just saying, really, because people's stories and the songs and the writers, like Charles Dickens himself, those are the things that fill my work, full of energy, full of creativity, and they sustain the painting while I'm working on it for several months. So yes, I would like to be considered to be a storyteller. The stories are not immediately obvious in a sense, the individual stories, because in a way they're unknowable, because I can never really know everything about the people that I draw at all by any means. But I'm trying to get a sense of the story of them in this particular place at this time. The next question, what's it like sketching at night time compared to the daytime? I often don't really think about the fact that the night is coming on and the evening is coming on, because I'm in this zone. I'm sketching. It's a bit like meditation. I'm kind of not really aware. I'm aware of the changing people around me, but I'm not really aware of the fact that it's becoming nighttime. I suppose when I've specifically gone out to paint a painting at nighttime, then I think about things differently. People are maybe a bit more relaxed when you're out in the streets at night, and they'll perhaps be a bit more friendly and come up and talk to you a bit more. So that's quite interesting. And the city obviously changes, and the nature of the city changes throughout the day, from early morning to lunchtime to evening times. Obviously, I'm talking about before the COVID and the virus happened. But before that time, the city had this kind of journey through the day. And so nighttime could be, it does have a different feel to it. Different people come out. There can be more of a playtime feel to it, I suppose, in a way. But then you also have, all the other elements of the city. You have the homeless people. So you have this whole mixture of life that's going on in the city. The next question is, a critic compared your work to musicals and motion pictures. Can you tell us your thoughts on this? And I really liked what he said. I like the fact that he picked up on the musicality of my work and the rhythm of my work, because a painting to me is never really finished until there's a sense of rhythm in it, until I can almost hear the sounds or feel the vibrations of the city. And we're all aware of it, when you open your window in the morning and you can hear the sound of the city, that kind of vibration. We're all part of it, we're all in that. It's almost like there's a kind of choreography of movement that goes on, the way we move around a city. Now again, of course, all that's changed since the virus has happened, and people move in a different way perhaps. So that's something that has changed. But maybe not forever. I don't think, but that's an interesting element to it. The way people maneuver in the space in the city. The question was, which artists have inspired you? And I guess the earliest people that inspired me in terms of art were the cartoonists that I used to look at. So people like Charles Schulz and the Peanuts cartoons. I loved Tintin and Hergé. Those are and obviously comic books, you know, all the comics I used to buy when I was a kid with my pocket money. Those were the things that really interested me. Walt Disney cartoons. Those kind of gave me ideas for doing my own drawings, really. And when I got a bit older, I started to look at more art. One of the earliest things actually was a painter, an English painter called William Hogarth. And this was a book that my father gave me. Hogarth was a painter from the 18th century who painted about London, and he painted specifically about the characters in London. I don't know if you can see this, but this is one of his famous characters called the Rake. And the Rake was a young man who inherited lots of money and kind of blew it all, had a kind of riotous life. And I've always loved Hogarth and his depictions of people and characters, and that's what I love about those. When I got a bit older, Renaissance paintings, the figures that artists were using in their paintings, the way they drew people about 500 years ago, 600 years ago, more. You know, those kinds of paintings that you can see in the National Gallery in London, people like Giotto, they were the paintings that really taught me about how to place people in space. And another one of my favourite English painters that some of you might know is Lowry, who was painting, I guess, about 70, 80 years ago. A really interesting painter. Again, painting about the society, the way that people lived in the society that he lived at the time. I love the work of painters from the Harlem Renaissance in New York. Painters like Jacob Lawrence and Archibald Motley, but particularly Jacob Lawrence, these kind of street scenes. An English painter who painted in quite a similar style and was very interested in that kind of, I guess you call it a naive kind of way of painting, but it looks very sophisticated to me, is Edward Burrough. He's a wonderful painter that I look at a lot. In terms of portraits, Alice Neal is one of my favourite painters. She's a terrific painter, really captures the spirit of someone, which is what I'm trying to do in my paintings. A much more recent painter is painter Jock McFadden, and this is actually very close to my studio. It's actually the view outside the window, but from quite a few years ago. That relationship between faces and places and space, very evident in Jock McFadden's work, I think. So those are the kind of artists that I was looking at when I was younger, and that I still look at a lot today, as well as visiting art galleries and museums, especially the free ones like the National Gallery. I spend a lot of time in there, just going in to look at one or two paintings that might have caught my eye and that I might think are worth spending maybe 5 or 10 minutes just sitting in front of. That's what I like to do to get ideas for when I'm trying to think of paintings. Can you tell us a bit more about your favourite paintings that you have made? A painting that I'm particularly thinking about a lot at the moment, this one here that's on the wall, St Thomas's Hospital, and you can see Westminster Parliament in the background. There's a nurse and a patient, people coming into hospital, and there's even my son in the painting as well. My daughter and myself are there as well, my wife. This is the hospital where they were born. It's a very emotional place for me, but obviously it's an emotional time, and I was working on this painting during obviously the last few months when everything was happening. Although it's not really about the virus as such, it's certainly about a place that we were all thinking about. Another painting that particularly interests me of mine was of the Old Kent Road. Some of you may know the Old Kent Road, just by Tesco's there. And I had gone there to draw people over a few different occasions over a number of years. And after a while, it became more and more interesting to me as a place, because I researched about the Old Kent Road and I learnt about the history of it being the old Pilgrim's Way. So pilgrims would go out to Canterbury Cathedral along the Old Kent Road. It just struck me, the history of it just struck me as being really interesting. So in that painting there's lots of references to Thomas à Becket himself. The Thomas à Becket pub is in the painting, and Thomas à Becket, the saint, there's references to him and what happened to him down in Canterbury, which is a story that some of you might know. That's a painting that was important to me. The next question that you've asked me, what do you like about London? Where are your favourite places in London and why? I like the mixture of people that you get in a city like London. I like the buzz of it. I kind of like the dirt of it, really, you know, and the busyness of it. All the things that people say that they don't like about cities are the things that interest me, because when I leave the door of my flat, when I walk out the door, I'm guaranteed to see something that I've never seen before, someone that I've never seen before. And those are the things that fascinate me about cities, really. And just the way that they work, you know, the way that all these people fit together in this space. And most of the time, it all works really well. It's this great experiment that kind of works really well. Obviously it's hard, and cities are tough places too, but you can't have one without the other. You can't have, it's like a yin and yang thing, you know, you have to have a balance. There's a lightness and a darkness in cities, and I think that's a kind of reflection of all of us as well. We have all these different elements to our characters, and we build cities in the same way that we are, really. They're constructs of ourselves. The next question, how does London compare to other cities that you visited? Well, I've been lucky enough to go around the world and paint different parts of the world, different cities. Places like Mexico City, I lived with my wife for a number of months, and I was painting the people in Mexico City, and that was a real adventure. It's harder for me to paint cities where I don't really speak the language. Even New York, when I was in New York, I found it difficult. I felt like such a foreigner in New York, such a stranger. But that's a great way to understand a city, is to stand and draw people and sketch people. Every city has a different kind of feeling, but then underneath it all, people are the same the world over. So, you know, there's always this kind of common sort of human understanding that exists. Little things and big things can be different, but there's always an underlying similarity between us, whatever city we're from, whatever part of the world. And I think the thing about London is that I know it best. To answer the question better, I know it best. I understand how it works more. If you can understand how a city like London works, I understand more about the culture of it, and that's what interests me, really. And there's all this history, these layers of history, you know, and it's the layers of history that are similar to the way that I work, because my work is about layering drawings, it's about layering textures, it's about eroding. I use sandpaper to sand away at different parts of the painting. So there's this busyness, this kind of coming and going. And this is a really good question. Your paintings are really busy, and we love that. Has lockdown changed the way that you paint? I'm still trying to decide how to best deal with that and those feelings. You know, it's a different place. It's been a sad place, and the city was always a place that was uplifting to me. So that's been really hard to see. It's been sad for all of us for all kinds of reasons. So I tend to work a few years behind. I'm quite a slow painter because paintings take a long time to do. So, you know, I don't know. If I can make work about this time, then I will. I'm not sure that the paintings will be that much emptier, because I still see lots of people around. You know, there are parts of town that you go there isn't anyone, and I wouldn't really be interested in painting those places anyway, because I want a balance between the architecture of the city and the people of the city. That's what I'm looking for, really. What do you like about teaching? Is teaching children a lot different to teaching adults? Well, my mum was a school teacher, and I learned a lot from watching her as a small child teaching. She was very interested in learning all her life. So I think the thing that I like about teaching is that it's about learning. And for me, the most important thing is to keep learning and keep being interested and keep picking up books and reading books and, researching. Not just reading stuff on the internet. There's loads of stuff on the internet to read, but to go to libraries when they're open again and to discover books that you love. There's something very important about picking up a book and feeling the pages, and turning pages. That's much more important to me than looking at a computer and tapping away on my phone. Learning is the most important thing. When I work with a class of school children, I'm designing a lesson to think, how can I learn? What can I learn from this? And I learn from them. I learn from my children now when they're drawing. I learn about freedom from them. About how free they are with their drawings. And that's really, really interesting thing, very important to me. So I like experimenting with teaching, really. And I like having fun. And drawing is all about, making art is all about having fun as well. Is teaching children a lot different to teaching adults is the next question. That's a great question as well. I think no, it's not at all. In fact, adults, if anything, they are less willing to change because they've had a lifetime of working in a certain way, and they're less willing to have that freedom that children are very willing to embrace. So I like the challenge of both, really. I like to try and work with children and adults, and ideally you want to work with children and adults together as well, because that when I've done that's created a really interesting environment for learning. The last question from everybody is, what have you got planned for this year? I have several paintings that I'm working on. I have the ideas that are emerging from this period of lockdown. Don't have any plans to exhibit. Normally I would be exhibiting every 2 years. At the moment it's a bit too difficult to do that, really. So I would like to exhibit somewhere at some point. I would like to be giving talks about my work. I'd like to be teaching again, but everything is on hold for everyone at the moment, and that situation will change, and we'll all come out of this, and we'll come out of it stronger and wiser. So that's what I'm really looking forward to. So my plans are, as always, to keep working, to keep trying to bring work together that says something about the city, that connects with people, that provokes people to tell me stories about their experiences of the city. Those are my plans, really, just to keep going and keep working. So I want to say thank you so much for your time and for listening to me. I hope you found it inspiring, and I hope you want to take your sketchbook out and you want to go out drawing and get your charcoals and your chalks and your pencils, and take your pencil sharpener, always keep a sharp pencil, and create some wonderful artwork, and maybe I'll get to see it at some point. But anyway, thank you so much, and take care. Bye.